Hi, welcome to Tristan Chow and continuing my Master the Mystic Arts series. In this video, I'll be talking about the great Magus and occult scholar Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. Agrippa was a German polymath, physician, legal scholar, soldier, theologian, and occult writer. Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, published in 1533, drew heavily upon Kabbalah, Hermetism, and Neoplatonism. His book was widely influential among occultists of the early modern period and was condemned as heretical by the Inquisitor of Cologne. Agrippa was born in Nettesheim, near Cologne, on 14th of September 1486, to a family of middle nobility. Many members of his family had been in service of the House of Habsburg. Agrippa studied at the University of Cologne from 1499 to 1502, from ages 13 to 16, when he received the degree of Magister Artium. The University of Cologne was one of the centres of Thomism, and the Faculty of Arts was split between the dominant Thomists and Albertists. It is likely that Agrippa's interest in the occult came from Albertist influence. Agrippa himself named Albert's Speculum as one of his first occult study texts. He later studied in Paris, where he apparently took part in a secret society involved in the occult. In 1508, Agrippa travelled to Spain to work as a mercenary. He continued his travels by way of Valencia, the Balears, Sardinia, Naples, Avignon, and Leon. He served as a captain in the army of Maximilian I, Holy Roman Emperor, who awarded him the title of Ritter or Knight. Agrippa's academic career began in 1509, receiving the patronage of Margaret of Austria, governor of Franche Comté, and Anton de Vergy, Archbishop of Besancon and Chancellor of the University of Dole. He was given the opportunity to lecture a course at the university on Hebrew scholar Johann Reuchlin's De Verbo Mirifico. At Dole, Agrippa wrote on the nobility and excellence of the feminine sex, a work that aimed at proving a superiority of women using Kabbalist ideas. The book was probably intended to impress Margaret. Agrippa's lectures received attention, and he was given a doctorate in theology because of them. He was, however, denounced by the Franciscan prior Jean Catalinet as Judaizing heretic, and was forced to leave Dole in 1510. In the winter of 1509 to 1510, Agrippa returned to Germany and studied with humanist Johannes Tremitius at Wurzburg on 8th of April 1510. He dedicated the then unpublished first draft of the occult philosophy to Tremitius, who recommended that Agrippa keep his occult studies secret. Proceeding to the Netherlands, he took service again with Maximilian. In 1510, the king sent Agrippa on a diplomatic mission to England, where he was the guest of the humanist and Platonist John Colet, Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral, and where he replied to accusations brought against him by Calinet. In reply, he argued that his Christian faith was not incompatible with his appreciation for Jewish thought, writing I am a Christian, but I do not like Jewish rabbis. Agrippa then returned to Cologne and gave disputations at the university's facility of theology. Agrippa followed Maximilian to Italy in 1511 and as a theologian attended the Schismatic Council of Pisa in 1512, which was called by some cardinals in opposition to a council called by Pope Julius II. He remained in Italy for 7 years, partly in service of William IX, Marquis of Montferrat, and partly in that of Charles III, Duke of Savoy, probably occupied in teaching theology and practicing medicine. During his time in northern Italy, Agrippa came into contact with Agostino Ricci and perhaps Paolo Ricci, and studied the works of philosophers Marsilio Ficino and Giovanni Piso del Mirandola and the Cabala. Mouthful. In 1515, he lectured at the University of Pavia on the Poemander of Hermes Trismegistus, but these lectures were abruptly terminated owing to the victories of Francis I, King of France. Excuse me. In 1518, the efforts of one or the other of his patrons secured for Agrippa the position of town advocate and orator or syndic at Metz. Here, as at Dole, his opinions soon brought him to collision with the monks, and his defence of a woman accused of witchcraft involved him in a dispute with the Inquisitor Nicholas Savin. The consequence of this was in 1520 he resigned his office and returned to Cologne, where he stayed about 2 years. He then practiced for a short time as a physician at Geneva and Freiburg, but in 1524 went to Lyons on being appointed physician to Louise of Savoy, mother of Francis I. In 1528 he gave up this position, and about this time was invited to take part in the dispute over the legality of the divorce of Catherine of Aragon by Henry VIII, but he preferred an offer made by Margaret, Duchess of Savoy and the region of the Netherlands, and became archivist and historiographer to the Emperor Charles V. Margaret's death in 1530 weakened his position, and the publication of some of his writings about the same time aroused anew the hatred of his enemies. But after suffering a short imprisonment for debt at Brussels, he lived at Cologne and Bonn under the protection of Herman of Wied, Archbishop of Cologne. By publishing his works, he brought himself into antagonism with the Inquisition, which sought to stop the printing of the Occulta Philosophia. He then went to France, where he was arrested by the order of Francis I for some disparaging words about the Queen Mother. But he was also soon released, and on 18th of February 1535 died at Grenoble. He was married 3 times and had a large family. During his wandering life in Germany, France, and Italy, Agrippa worked as a theologian, physician, legal expert, and soldier. Agrippa was for some time in the service of Maximilian I as a soldier in Italy, but devoted his time to mainly the study of occult sciences and to problematic illogical legal questions, which exposed him to various persecutions through life, usually in the mode described above. He would be privately denounced for one sort of heresy or another. He would only reply with venom considerably later. No evidence exists that Agrippa was seriously accused, much less persecuted for his interest in or practice of magical or occult arts during his lifetime. Although it was known he argued against the persecution of witches, it is impossible, of course, to cite negatively, but Nauta, the best biographical study to date, shows no indication of such persecution, and Van der Poel's careful examination of the various attacks suggests they were founded on quite other theological grounds. According to some scholarship, as early as 1525 and again as late as 1533, 2 years before his death, Agrippa clearly and unequivocally rejected magic in its totality, from its sources in imagined antiquity to contemporary practice. Some aspects remain unclear, but some believe this renunciation was sincere, not out of fear as a parody or otherwise. Recent scholarship generally agrees that this rejection or repudiation of magic is not what it seems. Agrippa never rejected magic in its totality, but he did retract his early manuscript of the occult philosophy to be replaced by the later form. In the third book of the occult philosophy, Agrippa concludes with, "But of magic I wrote, whilst I was very young, 3 large books, which I called of occult philosophy, in which was then, through the curiosity of my youth, erroneous, and now being more advised and willing to have retracted by the recantation, I formerly spent much time and cost in these vanities. At last I grew so wise as to be able to dissuade others from this destruction, for whosoever do, not in the truth nor in the power of God, but in the deceits of devils, according to the operation of wicked spirits, presume to define and prophesy, and practicing through magical vanities, exorcisms, incantations, and other demonical works and deceits of idolatry, boasting of delusions and phantasms, presently ceasing, brag that they can do miracles. I say all of these shall, with Jans and Jambres and Simon Magus, be destined to the torments of eternal fire." According to his student Johann Weyer, in the 1563 book De Praejudice Daemonum, Agrippa died in Grenoble in 1535. Augustine Clement wrote that Agrippa had a dog that jumped into the room as his master, near death, caused many to believe it was a demon. And there you have it, a nice little bio on the great Magus Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. Sorry about the butchering of words there, but hope you liked the video, and until next time, take care and be well.